Hey guys, so I'm extremely sorry for not uploading anything for the past month or so. Um, I got a new job. It was only for the summer, but it's kind of been taking up most of my time, and I also messed up my sleeping schedule a bit. So it kind of just made me like really tired during the day. And anytime I tried to record any type of story reading, no matter what it wasn't the stories itself. It was just like, I guess I got discouraged or lost motivation mid read. So I ended up just not posting them. And I guess I just had to find the drive to try to make another video. And I think the reason that I haven't been doing it, my own personal reason, was that I felt like I added a structure too quickly to follow. And I've never really done that with that. So what's going to be happening is I'm going to be changing a couple of things. I am going to be posting a video every week, but it's not going to be on Saturdays. It's going to be anytime between Monday and Friday. So until I can figure out how to fully grasp how to put stuff out like every like specific day, it's going to be like between Monday and Friday you'll see me post a video. So I'm going to do that so like I don't lose motivation, and if I need like to post something and if I feel like I don't post it, I'll lose motivation, then I'll post it so I could just have something out. Because there has been times where I had ideas for videos and then forgot them. So well, yeah. That's that. Sorry about this long intro, but I thought I'd address it. And yeah, here's 2 night shift horror stories. Since I'm at home now because of my fibro disability, I've got a lot of time to read these chilling tales. It also gives me time to look back at my own past, remember some of my own scary moments. I have several more stories to tell and share. This one was one of those memories that I remembered and wanted to share. Back in 2007, I started a tech job with the IP phone VoIP DT1 long distance company. The company is no longer around, and honestly, I don't know how they stayed in business as long as they did. It was really a pyramid scam, but thankfully I was on the IT side of things, so I didn't really have to sell anything. It was a small, typical tech support call center. The customers would call in, or Verizon, Quest, etc., would call in and DT1 lines when we were down with outages. I was the only female on my team, having to prove I could do anything my male counterparts could. It didn't take long, and the customers respected me for being able to handle things. After making my mark, I decided to take the 10-hour night shifts. I worked Wednesday to Saturday from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m. An hour lunch, and after 6 p.m. I was completely alone in the entire building. The rush to get out of the office by 6 p.m. was insane. I couldn't blame them though, but I decided having 3 days off was better than just 2. Like I said, I was all by myself for most of the night. I would have kept an eye on emails and make sure I answered all the calls. It was a very slow shift. I would get a lot of video game, reading, schoolwork, writing during this time. But sometimes I would just wander the building, walk all around just to get away from my desk for a time. I would have the VoIP phone system connected to my cell phone so no calls would be missed. This allowed me to get a soda or get food and so on. One time, while I was up and away from my desk, I was going down to the lunchroom to grab a soda. The vending machine was on the basement floor. The basement had a wall of windows and one set of security doors. Same for the main entrance. Only there was one camera facing that door. Nothing else really made you feel very safe. I didn't like going to the basement much because the back of the building faced an acre of dark woods. There was a walking path to the woods, but for some reason they didn't install any of the lights for the walking path. Never really sure why that was, but it didn't help the creepy factor that it had. Sometimes I would see animals run past, but other times I felt like someone was watching me. I always tried my best to make it when getting a soda or a snack, but sometimes it didn't feel fast enough. So one night, I was making my way down to the basement of the building to get a soda. It was a slow, dragging night, and I needed a little caffeine for a pick-me-up. I counted my money as I walked to make sure I had enough to get in and out quick. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw something dart from the glass door back into the darkness. I stopped dead in my tracks and tried to scan the forest, but like I said, it was just blackness. I felt a bit of unease, and everything told me to turn on my heels and go back to my desk, but it was 9 p.m., and I had a fair bit of time left on my shift before I could blow this pop stand. I tried shaking the feelings off and briskly walked over to the soda machine and made my selection. The soda dropped, and as I bent down to get it, I heard a loud ping noise. It was as if someone had hit the glass with something. I stood straight up and felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I slowly turned around and was scared to see someone out there. But as I made the full turn, I saw once again nothing but darkness. I thought this was a good time to book it back up to the main floor. I didn't bother with the elevator. I went to the stairs and ran up them. My heart was already racing from having to go down there in the first place. Then the loud bang, and now running up 2 flights of stairs. Once I was back at my desk, I sunk down in my chair and tried to calm down. It was just one noise. It was a building with locked doors and locked inner offices. I kept saying over and over in my head. It was nothing. I was relieved by that, but out of nowhere, where I got that feeling of someone watching me again. I peeked over my cubicle wall and looked around my office. It seemed out of place until I turned to face the front of the building. Outside, the first set of doors, was a slender, tall, dirty male. He was cupping his hands around his eyes to try and see past the reflecting lights of the inside. I dropped back down on my cubicle before he caught sight of me. He didn't look like anyone I have ever seen at the office, and it was little past 9 p.m. There is no good reason why he is checking out my office. As I sit in my chair, I hear the doors shake. I slowly stood up and watched him pull at the handles of the doors. They didn't budge, to my relief. But as I watched him, he turned to face me. His face looked bruised or dirty. I couldn't tell which. Once his eyes locked onto mine, he started to bang harder and smack the glass. I was so scared. It was the middle of the night. I was by myself and out in the middle of this office building complex. I grabbed my headset and called 911. While getting the operator on the line, the guy was walking back and forth from one side of the glass door to the next. 911, what's your emergency? The lady's voice was direct. Yes, my name is Sarah. I work at the local VoIP direct call center. I need someone to come out. There's a guy trying to break into my office building. While speaking with her, the guy disappeared from view. I tried to look in all directions, but I didn't see him. I knew that he wouldn't just walk off, not with how hard he was banging. Out of nowhere, a good-sized rock came out of nowhere and smashed against the door. I screamed and went under my desk. The operator asked me what just happened. I explained that a rock smashed against the glass door. She asked me if the glass was broken enough to let him in. I didn't want to stand up and look, but she told me to look in order to know where he was now. I crawled out from under my desk and just peeked over my wall and saw a huge crack down the first part of the door. I sank back down and told her to please have the police hurry. She said that they were on their way. I have read many of these stories on this subreddit, and people say the cops couldn't get there fast enough. They aren't kidding. It feels like time is standing still, and you can do nothing. Another smash against the door, but along with that, there was a glass breaking sound. Sirens could be heard coming towards my building. It was music to my ears. I told the operator that the police had arrived and thanked her for all of her support. I stood back up and looked over the cubicle wall, and the red-blue lights were flashing wildly. But the thing I didn't see was the man. The top part of the door was completely smashed and the rock was laying on the inside of the entryway. One officer came to the front door and others were combining in the area. I could see their flashlights moving all around the parking lot. The first officer came into the building and greeted me. He was a very kind man. He was patient with me and let me explain what I saw happened. Soon my boss arrived and checked on me and then the damage. At some point my husband was called and I told I was being escorted by one of the officers. I took the next few days off and started to look for another job that wasn't by myself at night. When I gave my statement, I explained to the officer that the person could be partnered with an ex-coworkers who was fired a few weeks prior for stealing and just not showing up. He knew when people came and went. He knew where he kept the cell phones we were selling, not under the lock and key, but under a desk of the provisioner, from smartphones to Blackberries. I went on to leave this job a month later and started at a credit card machine company. It was an office full of people, still a call center, blah blah blah, but I felt safer, especially with the security and the cameras all over the building. Like I said before, this company is no longer around. It was bought up by another company. And they basically liquidated all the funds that were worth something. So, dirty man who tried to break into my office, let's never meet again. Alright, so a little backstory before I tell you one of the crazy experiences of mine that happened during my 2-year security career from 2013 to 2015. I'm a 6'7" male in Australia. I'd like to think I'm a fairly tough and intimidating guy, but some of the shit that used to go on at the mall I used to work the night shift for still gives me goosebumps to this day. So the mall I worked at was very, very large, probably the largest in my state, I'd say. And all the way up to about 8:30 p.m., it would still be quite busy. Only around 9:30 would we manage to usher all of the stragglers out, and about 11 p.m. we would get all the business owners and have them leave. My job was basically to patrol the mall and make sure there was no one sticking around after the doors were closed during that night. We didn't have guns or batons, only a can of mace that was very rarely used. There were multiple occasions where we would find would-be thieves hiding around trying to break into shops after dark, but they were normally far outnumbered by the 4 to 5 of us on shift at the time. And they would usually be intimidated by me or some of the other imposing members of security anyway. This one night, though, shit started getting really weird for me on the night shift. So I say it was about 2 o'clock, and I was standing in the middle of the empty food court eating a sandwich. This was the only part of the mall that had any light at nighttime due to the skylight, so it was comfortable to eat there. While I was eating, though, I heard a dull scraping noise from the hallway leading off from the food courts and to some of the toilets. It sounded like a piece of metal dragging across the floor. I was immediately put on edge and I flicked on my torch, without a moment of hesitation. I can remember creeping down the hallway with the flashlight in hand, illuminating a good 6 or 7 meters in front of me. As I got closer and closer to the end of the hall, the noise became louder and louder, till I was at the end of the hallway, and there was the toilet doors, and right at me. I could tell the sound was coming from the female toilets, though. I gripped the handle and opened the door a tiny little crack. The noise was now very clear, and had me not be scared, but confused. I yelled, "Hey! Who's in there?" The noise quickly stopped. I paused a moment, listening hard enough the tiny crack of the door, and I swear to fucking God I can hear breathing. Low, male breathing. I shut the door, still gripping the handle tightly, and flicked on the radio. "This is 1-3, I need help in the food court bathrooms, I think someone's in here." No response. This was really strange and it put me further on edge. Policy was to always answer the radio, and now I was truly becoming quite alarmed. "This is 1-3, does anyone copy?" Still no response. I can remember whispering to myself, what the actual fuck? I again opened the door a tiny crack. "Listen, mate," I said, sounding as intimidating as possible. "If you don't fucking come out with your hands up, you're going to end up eating your teeth tonight. Do you want that?" I sat there at the door, quite honestly terrified at this point, but there was no response. In fact, there was no noise at all. I yelled into the bathroom, Okay, mate, I'm coming in. If you do anything stupid, it's not my fault you ever walk again. I tried my hardest to sound scary, but my voice was quivering at this point. This whole situation made no sense at all. Why would someone be in the female bathrooms? What was that metal noise? What the fuck is even happening? I very slowly opened the door and scanned my flashlight slowly across the room. All the cubicles were open, but other than one room was totally empty. I was totally shitting myself about now. I was definitely losing it. I walked into the center of the bathroom, closing the door behind me, scared to the core. I let out a faint, "This is some horror movie shit, come out," when I heard the long, whining squeak of the door behind me. I span around, basically crying at this point, and shone my torch on a fucking massive man. At least a head taller than me or so, it seemed, in my state at the time. He was Caucasian and at least in his 40s, with matte gray hair all over his forehead. He was mid-opening the door, but he stopped dead still in the middle of his action. He just looked at me, smiling, like with this guilty fucking smile like a kid would make when he gets caught stealing biscuits or some shit like that. I'm not gonna lie, I was so scared I froze. He lifted his finger up to his mouth. Shh. Before swinging the door open all the way and sprinting out with what looks like some type of small metal box in his hand. Turns out he was just behind the toilet door when I was opening it, and I totally had missed him. I was so fucking close to him, I didn't even notice. He would have killed me if he had a knife or something, and that thought still haunts me to this day. Later that night, my radio miraculously started working again, and I got right to yelling at my coworkers about my story. They collectively went pale when I told them what had happened. They had all had similar stories, but none was as much close shave as mine. I worked the night shift for another week after that before I quit. I'm not sticking around a job like that. I needed help, and for some reason my radio just decided to fuck itself. But why?